Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges that we're looking at right now is um, essentially we've set up an embargo on Chinese goods. And in the short term, you know, basically everyone has at least some stock on the shelves that they can absorb it. And so if it were to reverse, you know, in the next month or two, probably there wouldn't be significant macroeconomic consequences. I think the real question is if some form of the embargo remains in place, how magnified is that impact? Of course, imports from China are a few percent of our GDP. In and of itself, probably not that big a deal if you were just talking about, the imports. The real question is where do those imports fit in to all of the goods related and to some extent services related activities that happen in the economy? And, the reality is what something like one third of the economy is some sort of direct or indirect goods related consumption. And pretty much there isn't a place in the economy that isn't influenced or isn't supplied by Chinese goods in one form or another. And so I, I think of my kids' soap, which is made in America, but is the bottle is produced in China. Is such a perfect example of you know the type of stresses that lots of companies are facing, even things that are quote unquote made domestically. And so you know, we have the thing I would emphasize is we have no idea. In the same way, when we were standing in March 1st of 2020, we had no idea of all of the second and third order consequences of, turning off the economy the way that we did. We don't have a full appreciation, and nobody does, of all the different ways in which an embargo will disrupt activity throughout the economy and the services and goods sector. And so the main thing is like, the direction, and I'd say at the same time, the direction is pretty clear, which is if this sticks around, it's going to be a negative. And if it's a negative compared to equity markets in particular that are pricing in very, very optimistic conditions, any persistence of the tariff environment or the Chinese embargo is set up to disappoint very, very elevated equity expectations. And so that's, a lot of uncertainty in terms of the macroeconomic consequences. But actually, when it comes to the markets, a lot less uncertainty because the markets have basically fully priced in a full scale rollback of the tariffs. And, the range of outcomes are certainly include that, but they also include a reasonable possibility that they stick around for a while.